Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Crimer Beer House for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. The beer house was started in 1982 by the Crimer family. Since that time, they have become a Cincinnati favorite. If you're looking for an incredible meal and an incredible setting, you have to try Crimer's Beer House down on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Strong Dads here with Merle. We got another special guest in the house. We got Will here, and we're sitting here razzing Merle, Will, and I, since Will and I have to share a mic here, and Merle gets to sit over there on high horse and gets to have his own mic.
Well,
Unbelievable.
I'm kind of in the cockpit here.
Oh,
okay?
yeah.
I think I'm senior pilot.
You are. We got respect for elders, so we won't razz them too hard. But yes, back here again. Merle, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. Doing all right. We're starting to see a little bit of normalcy in our life. We finally opened Rock Solid Families back up with precautions, of course, trying to keep people safe and healthy, but at least we're starting to see people face-to-face. We actually had our first fitness classes in this morning.
Good.
It was good to see some of those folks came in and break a sweat. So it's good. Life's good.
Awesome. Yeah, we got had a good little weekend here before. We had some good weather, so lots of people got out, I'm sure. Did some normal things out and about. So.
I'm still down in the basement.
Oh, man.
Still in the basement, man.
That basement finished.
Kids were out playing and stuff. It was beautiful, and I'm looking out the window going, I wish I was outside.
So sad.
Yeah. So we do have a special guest today, and our guest is actually, he's a little bit familiar with my basement. Our guest is Will Berry, and Will is agreed to be a guest on our show, not because he's a celebrity, although in his own mind he might think he is.
Absolutely.
But he's agreed to be on our show because I got to know Will first through church, but then just through helping out in our with some of my construction stuff, my remodel stuff, and got to hear his story of his upbringing as a child and a young boy, and now into fatherhood. And his upbringing is less than traditional, I guess I'll say. The more I heard your story, Will, the more I was like, man, this is all about Strong Dads. This is exactly, Strong Dads, Kyle and I started Strong Dads not to go grab the great dads of the world. Sure. The dads who are already doing it right and perfect and all that, I mean, we want those dads, okay? Sure. But we're out to grab the dads who are on the fringe, who maybe never had a good dad experience, but are going to step in to dadhood. And because we need them. We need them like never before. And not to make light of it, but we are recording this on the heels of a lot of controversy in this country right now with just racism and the police violence and brutality, and all these things are coming around this country right now. We're just being bombarded, but so much of this goes back to what our whole purpose is in Strong Dads. So much of this can be going back to fatherhood and how we raised people up, whether you were the cop or whether you were the guy being beat up by the cop. How were you raised up to treat people and treating people right, treating people that shows them that you love them. That doesn't mean you always like what they do, but that you love them. And so, Will, I just can't appreciate enough your willingness to share your story. And I know it has some dirt, so we want to be respectful of you and your family. We're not here in any way to put a blemish on you, but we would like to get into your story a little bit today. Absolutely. Okay? Before we do that, Kyle, we better do a couple ads.
We probably
because you'll yell at me because I forget them like normal.
Yes, definitely. Strong Dads today would like to thank Crimer's Beer House for sponsoring our episode today. The Beer House was established in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you were looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, you have to definitely go down on Route 128 and check out Crimer's Beer House.
All right, very good. We would also like to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency, located in Bright, Indiana, for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, but also serving clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. All right, so we're going to jump into basically, Will, your story, okay? Sure. And maybe we'll just start with a beginning, right? A little bit about where you're from, a little bit about your upbringing and that kind of stuff. And you can start walking us through your whole childhood experience into adulthood. So, absolutely. Where are you from?
The womb.
Good place to start. Better than a test tube.
I'm from the inner east side of Cincinnati. I grew up in two different neighborhoods right next to each other. They kind of bordered each other, and so I've been out here in Indiana about 10 years exactly, because my anniversary was a couple days ago. And
happy anniversary!
Thank you. And but yeah, that's where I'm from, Cincinnati, and pretty much just like being out here because it's quiet.
Out in God's country, I can't.
Yeah, there's not people breaking bottles and committing felonies right next door to me all day long. And I'm not doing it no more. So.
Well, and that's a little bit of the point that. So, tell us a little bit about what your neighborhood was like when you were a kid. You growing up, and also your part in that, because you were no angel in that, right?
No, absolutely not. I was definitely one of the guys and wanted to be like, I looked up to the guys that were just getting out of prison, and I looked up to the guys that came out and were fully tattooed from head to toe, and that were that would fight and on the street and at the drop of a hat, and they held court on the street. There wasn't no ifs, ands, or buts. It was like judge, jury, and executioner right there, the one neighborhood I grew up in was a little bit different. Right now, I'd say it's about half and half, black and white. And the other neighborhood, which borders it, that my dad's side of the family is from, is predominantly poor white neighborhood. So I would go back and forth, mostly as a kid, because my grandma had a house down there and she watched me a lot. So, I would just, without getting off track, I would just see all this stuff going on so much, so fast, and without any real guidance. Now, my mom did tell me, how to be a good person, I think.
But what without you say without any good guidance. So what was a day like? A summer day? Obviously, you got out of the house and you just kind of ran, or what? What did that look like?
A summer day. What age?
8, 9.
Okay,
10.
So at about 8 or 9 or 10, we would do stuff to be around the cool guys of the neighborhood, and we would go off on our own little things, and we would steal stuff, and I don't know, just
Did you ever second guess like any of the stealing or anything like that, even as a little kid?
Yeah, I knew it was wrong. I knew right from wrong, and it wasn't like totally just instinct. There was some fear there and some anxiety. I remember as a kid doing that, but I wanted to show my worth to my older friends that I looked up to, and I wanted to be cool like they were, what I thought was a perception of cool, which is a whole lot different today.
Yeah. So how? So when you're out in that group, you're the younger kid and you're hanging with the older kids and you're trying to get the basic attention, positive attention from the older kids. So what did you find yourself doing to, gain that acceptance?
Well, as I got more into like around 11 or 12, girls started coming into the picture, and and on the east side there was 2 public middle schools and 1 public high school. And the high school, if you don't mind me naming it, the high school was Withrow High School, which was actually more of a horror story than a high school. It was it was more like a battleground. And the 2 middle schools, depending on your address where you lived at, was more like going to just to hang out with your friends. It was they bust people in from different neighborhoods, and it was all city neighborhoods. It was none of it was and me personally, I didn't learn much. I didn't try, but I think there was so many distractions because everybody from the neighborhood was there, and it was just like all we did was just wake up and go to school. We didn't not like my kids today who are actually getting A's and B's. I think we just had to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, so obviously as you sit here and kind of explain and kind of talk a little bit about your upbringing, what was it about that lifestyle that was appealing for you? What was that drew you to that kind of, for lack of better words, being in the streets versus, just like you were saying, you didn't necessarily always care about going to school. What was it about that lifestyle that was appealing for you?
I would say that it was more or less of I don't want to say I didn't have a choice because I'm sure I did have a choice. Maybe everybody has a choice. I probably could have studied or something at home, but it was appealing maybe because the girls at the time, and I think. And I'll be honest with you, since we're talking about strong dads, I think it was a lot of my dad really didn't guide me to what I should be doing as much as I would guide my kids today. And, so therefore, maybe them guys, I looked up to them, like more of a guidance figure.
Sure.
How did your dad respond to you when you started to bring a little attention to yourself by getting in trouble and being kind of a street kid? How did your dad respond? Did he just sort of look the other way, or did he discipline you, or how did that roll?
I think my dad had put his hands on me one time. Other than that, he would just kind of, I remember, now my dad was the only one who worked in the family. He just had a little warehouse job, and he lost it. And I was around 13 when we moved to Buffalo, because my mom is from Buffalo. She moved down here when she was 16, and we moved to Buffalo because her family had to put us up. And what I started doing from there is I started running away from home. But this is when I remember more of his reactions to my actions. Stuff like I'd come home and say, Dad, and this is the first time I tried drugs, I'd come home and I'd say, Dad, I'm tripping on this acid really hard. And I remember telling him that, and I was only like 12 or 13 years old.
And you were doing acid.
And I'm doing acid. And he said, well, go upstairs and trip on that acid. Go upstairs and trip on that.
Wow.
So
there wasn't any kind of call for intervention.
There wasn't no real curfew or, and then I had 3 younger brothers, so it trickled down to them. And, at the time, it's kind of, I think it was kind of hard for them because they were pot smokers, you know, and they were hippie like. So it was
Who's that? Your parents were?
Yeah, both
Okay.
parents. So they smoked pot in front of us, you know, and then ultimately ended up smoking with us, you know. So cussing, you know, was accepted. There really wasn't much of a curfew. So I think the trouble was more like, the consequences was more like, oh man, my dad, in my perception is my dad would think, oh, you had to make me do this, so now I'm pissed. You know, not, I care about you getting in trouble as much, you know, let's try and do it this way. It's like, oh, now you're dragging me into it, you know, so.
More how it affected him.
Yeah, and I got in a lot of trouble. So, I mean, I don't know where to start with that exactly.
Well, and we'll feed around through there. But so you're in Buffalo, but I believe you said, I heard one other time, you ran away and came back to Cincinnati.
Several times.
Okay. So when you came back to Cincinnati, now you're 13, 14, 15 years old?
Yeah, about 14, 15, yeah.
Okay, and so what are you doing when you're in Cincinnati?
I probably moved to Buffalo when I was about 14 because the last grade that I ever graduated was 8th. So I have an 8th grade education, and I went to 9th grade in Buffalo I actually went for a whole year, you know, a whole whatever, you know,
A school year,
year, you know, and failed, and throughout that school year, you know, I would run away. I would actually have somebody buy me Greyhound bus tickets, and I'd come back to Cincinnati because I miss my friends. And I would call home, and my mom and dad would say, "When you coming back?" Not, "Hey, you know, get back here. What's going on?"
Yeah.
You know, when you coming back? So, you know, I did that several times, and the last time I finally took off. We had stolen a car, and I took off with some guys from Buffalo. They wanted to see what Cincinnati was like, and that's when I got in my major trouble.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your major trouble. So you're things are going downhill quickly in terms of your bad behavior, right? Yeah. So tell us about how, what did bad trouble look like for you?
So, you know, I mean, when I got back to the neighborhood, this is the real poor neighborhood at the time, and I mean, I could probably say the name if you don't. I mean, it's up to you or not. We don't have to. It's different now than it was then, but and that's fine. I'll leave it out. But I came back to the neighborhood, and what happened is somehow the guys from Buffalo left, which was fine with me. I was only in Buffalo for about a year at the most, you know, for that school year really. And what happened was I came back, and several of my friends are riding around with a bunch of money, and, you know, riding around, and they got limos, and they got new shoes and all kinds of stuff, and they're making money. Well, I'm thinking, like, you know, I don't know exactly what I was thinking, but in my head, I'm sure I was like, it's not good.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I proceeded to ask them how they were making the money.
Yeah.
So, you want me to finish?
Yeah.
Going? So, and this kind of reverts back to how the role models were of where I was. My buddy's father was painting houses for a company, and what he would do is he'd leave the window open for us younger kids for them at the time, and it ended up being me too, is he'd leave the window open in the nicer neighborhoods for us to come rob stuff. So they'd break into the window, they'd steal everything out.
So through the day, they'd be painting in that house, and they would leave, but they'd leave a window unlocked.
Window open and have it all set up to where the person was gone. They knew exact time. They literally were bringing trucks and stuff up, and taking big time stuff out of the house.
Wow.
Money.
Wow.
Just robbing the whole place.
Yeah, and you were part of that.
So, well, I ended up being part of the last and final one. There was a guy from the neighborhood there that was about 20 years old. He was actually 20, and he was a real lunatic. He was the main one who was going in the houses and scoping everything out from what I remember. And a lot of it's a blur because I'm almost 45 now, So, but I did ask if I could go in on this one because I want to make some money, and it was supposed to be simple. And there was 5 of us, 2 adults and 3 teens, and we went up and we boosted the guy into the window and pretty much waited. The girl that was the driver, she waited around the corner of the UDF, and several of us, the 3 of us, stood outside or kind of posted down in the bushes from what I remember, and it was summer, so the windows were open, which was odd to me. And there was supposed to be nobody home. And what ended up happening is we started hearing a bunch of racket and a bunch of noise. And we started looking at each other because we were close, the 3 of us that were outside. And what happened was he was inside beating this old lady to death.
Wow. So she was home, and she saw him, and he attacked her,
and he killed her. He killed her. He raped her.
Oh my gosh!
And he beat her to death and put her in a closet. So
and all while you guys were outside.
No, what we ended up doing was we heard the racket, and he didn't come out. And he was in there for a long time, and this house kind of sat on a corner from what I remember, and I remember always seeing headlights going by and by and by, and we were so amateur we had socks on our hands, we didn't even have gloves. I mean, it was just it was something, and at the time, I didn't know what was going on, to be honest with you. I don't think I could have stopped him even if I knew what he was doing, because he was, a bigger guy, an older guy, and I was, 15, full of fear, and a lunatic, and would I have went against somebody like that, in the neighborhood, that would have went against everything I stood for, but at the same time, I didn't know what was happening, and so we all took off, and what happened was we went to the neighborhood and kind of hung around, and we remembered all of us were together, and we saw him ride by in a cop car, and I guess what had happened is he went down there and told a couple people what he did, and they called the cops on him. So all of us got together, and we kind of said, hey, we didn't have no part in a murder or nothing. We'll admit we went to rob a house, but we didn't want any part of that. At the time I was kicking it with the prettiest girl in the neighborhood. I'm thinking I don't want no part of that. I'm not no rapist or murderer like that, and I want to kind of clear my name, and at the same time, I knew we were in trouble. So this is one time where I did call my dad, and he came back from Buffalo to Cincinnati, and we all went and turned ourselves in and told our story, and from there they gave me juvenile life, and which is the Department of Youth Services until you're 21, or they parole you earlier than that. They gave the other 2 the same thing. They gave the 2 adults, that one of them that was there, they gave him 10 years, and they gave the guy who killed the lady 300 and some odd years.
Wow.
And that's in exchange for the death penalty. So he went to Lebanon Correctional Facility, went on a liquid diet, and broke through the bars and broke out of Lebanon Correctional.
No way.
In Warren County, Ohio, yeah. And
so how long were you in juvie?
So, and it's funny. It's not funny, but it's people, when maybe people's perception of juvie is different. But when you're a 14 and 15-year-old and you show up to a maximum security juvenile facility that's got two 10-foot razor wire fences and bars on the windows, it's pretty intimidating. And there's guys inside that have been in there for years, and some of them are 19, 20 years old, and your mind's still young. So I was in there for almost 3 years, and I got out when I was just about 18 years old.
So just for the sake of time, you get out, you're 18 years old. And by the way, people can't see this, but Will is one put together dude, right? So I would not mess with you, okay?
I would agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, and so you are a strong person and a tough guy. So you get out, you're 18 now, okay? Yeah. You got basically an 8th grade education. Mm-hmm. Do you turn the ship around at this point?
Absolutely not.
What happens?
Well, I get out and I'm more hateful than ever. I'm actually, when I first went in, I was a little bit bullied by the bigger black guys, and I made it up in my mind that I'm gonna fight, and I'm gonna fight till I have to die, and a 15-year-old shouldn't have to make up their mind like that, and what ended up happening in the process of me being in there, we had a little white group that we all hung together, so it kind of made me, it kind of leaned me towards being, hateful towards black people at the time.
Sure.
So,
yeah, the racism within the prison
system.
Yeah,
so I got out, and and my neighborhood was mostly white, and I thought of it as, wow, now I'm really in here now. I got a couple little tattoos and stuff, generic junky looking tattoos at the time, and and I just came out with hatred. I came out with my chest stuck out, a lot of pride, false pride, and I just, I was up to no good. It taught me nothing. And I ended up going back. I got a DUI within that first month.
Oh,
I was
wow!
out.
A month after you were released.
Yeah, so I'm almost 18. They sent me back for 6 months. So I wasn't even out barely a month and a half, 2 months at the most, and they sent me back for 6 months.
When you're going back, is there any remorse in you at all, or are you just getting more angry and more resentful at the system?
I think the whole time throughout my life, I knew because there was, like I said, my mom and dad were pot smokers, and they really didn't keep much control. But they weren't people they weren't animals, So they taught me, the right and wrong way to live. So I did know that this wasn't good, and I did want better. But at the time, with the influences I was around, the older influences, and me starting to become my own person that was influencing others, I think maybe I thought it was starting to be my destiny or something cool,
Just the lifestyle you're going to live.
Just the lifestyle I'm going to live. This is how everybody else is living, so let me keep rocking with it.
Wow, Will. So, this story I know it's still got a lot of meat on the bone, right? You're still only 18. So, what happens after 18? You get your second DUI, or you get your DUI, you're in second time, you get out.
Yeah.
Now what?
So I get out the second time, and I'm pretty much in the thick of the neighborhood, and by this time the neighborhood's just every other house is pretty much boarded up. There's 20 to 50 people on every corner, and everybody's convicted felon, or and
you're not one of the bigger guys.
Yeah, and
you're not one of the little 8-year-old kids. You're one of the big guys.
Now I'm starting to become one of the guys who's starting to demand a little bit of respect, and but at the same time, my mind just went through a lot, and I was introduced to pain pills, which actually made everything go away for me in my mind, because there was a certain amount of anxieties that was starting to build too, although I was trying to hustle drugs and stuff like that, there was a lot of anxiety starting to build. So I started dabbling a lot in pain pills, and of course I drank a lot and smoked a lot, with the guys and stuff, smoked a lot of weed, and at this time, I'm still doing a lot of stuff, committing crimes, just not getting caught as much. Actually, I did get caught for a lot of stuff. I mean, I pretty much, once I got out off of juvenile parole, wasn't long before I was in the Justice Center, downtown Cincinnati at 18 years old, doing time there for after I started getting hooked on the pain pills. I had a doctor fraud. They call it doctor shopping, where I was
getting them writing prescriptions.
Yeah, going to different places and writing prescriptions, and then before I know it, all kinds of stuff was happening. I was in the Justice Center, in front of the grand jury for indictments, which Cincinnati seemed to ignore a lot of indictments at the time, and there wasn't a lot of good evidence against me for some of them. There was a armed robbery I committed that I ran to Florida for, where the gun fell out of my back pocket, and I was actually robbing a guy for several pounds of marijuana, and the gun fell out of my back pocket, and he called the cops and said I robbed him of cash. Well, I ran to Florida, and I was gone for a while, a couple months, and I came back, and I figured I was just going to go to jail, but the grand jury never indicted me on it. So, they had the fingerprints in the gun, but, what ended up happening through all this is I ended up at the methadone clinic, and that's where I met my first wife, who I fell in some drug love with, and she was a stripper at the time, and what happened was I had to feed our addiction not just with our everyday methadone. We were also smoking crack. We were doing a lot of different stuff. We were living really rough, and she ended up becoming, what ended up happening is I caught an assault charge. I committed an assault, and I went to prison for my first time as an adult. And when I got out, she was on the streets of Covington prostituting. So by this time, and I had started using intravenous drugs before I went to prison. So by this time, I'm just sitting around in Covington and watching her get in and out of cars with old guys, white guys, black guys, young guys, whoever, and we'd go and get drugs when she was.
So you were actually kind of even condoning it because she was a money source.
She was a money source, and sometimes she wouldn't make it back, because I really wasn't that important. I was more like a leech, really, because I wasn't no pimp or a protector or nothing. I was just kind of a guy she kind of loved, I guess. But I went to prison again, and got out again, and it was the same old story. And along somewhere in between this, I would go back to the neighborhood, and I ended up getting shot in the head because there was a couple rival family members. The families down there got big, and they were shooting at each other, and a guy was shooting, and it was actually friendly fire, and the guy was shooting at one of the other guys, and I caught 12 gauge shotgun pellets in my skull, and that fueled me even more to just keep on doing drugs and living bad. And I just thought that was normal. And finally,
I want to stop you for a second, because as you're explaining all this, I'm just, well, one, it's a life I've never lived. Okay, so but I can only imagine that there's in my mind one of two ways to go. One is to be scared to death and crawl into a hole, which that's not going to cut it for Will Berry.
No.
So the other one is to become so hardened and so tough. I mean, because it's like what happens when people are in war, and right?
Yeah,
I mean,
sure,
eventually you just
absolutely.
kind of get this callus on you.
Absolutely.
So you're kind of even losing a whole sense of just decency and right and wrong and all this kind of stuff. I just can't even imagine. And so we want to start to move towards wrapping up just for the sake of time, but there's going to be a part 2 here. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, but I do want you to finish your story. Your wife, your first wife, things don't end well there.
No. And just to reiterate real quick, I did try to join the Marine Corps when I was just got out of the second time out of juvenile, and they wouldn't let me because of my charge. But I wanted to be a killing machine, and I felt like I was good for it. But it is like war, and what happened with her is I finally was on parole, and I went to prison for the third time as an adult. And I finally was just sick and tired, and I went to prison this time, and my mind was different. I wanted to do something different, and when I got out, I was so nervous and full of anxiety and fear that I sat in my mom's little apartment and just stayed in the back room because I did not know how to live. I did not know how to pay bills. I did not know how to stay sober. But if I left that apartment that I was going to get high and maybe commit crime and going back to prison. So I ended up leaving that apartment, and I did get high. And that's when I just finally surrendered. And that's when I finally said, I went to my mom. I confided in her, which was odd. And I said, I need some help. And I went, she said, I got my boyfriend's brothers in a halfway house. Let me see if I can get you in. And what happened was I went and saw a doctor, got on some anxiety medicine. It was like God started working in my life really strong. And because I was praying a lot this time in prison.
So you did have some level of faith.
Oh yeah, I knew, I would pray. I'd get on my knees, especially this last time in prison. I would get on my knees and I'd read the Bible, and I believed, to a certain point. There was a certain level of faith, and when I finally got in that halfway house, I figured out she had been beaten to death.
Your
My
wife,
first wife, yeah, over in the projects in Covington, and so that's pretty much where that ended with her, and my journey in sobriety began.
wow.
And I think there's a lot of good stuff here, and we want to continue this conversation. Just like Merle was saying, we're going to kind of do a part 2, and I know we've never done this before, but I think this is kind of a good chance for us to do that. So definitely stay tuned. Next week, we're going to put out another show. Will, you're going to finish your story, kind of where you've been and where you're going and kind of where you're at now. So we're really excited to hear the rest of that. But before we go, again, thanks so much for Crimer's Beer House and Mansfield Insurance Agency for coming alongside of us. All you strong dads out there, stay tuned for next week. Go out there and be some strong dads.
Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, serving clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.